Hello everyone. The topic I want to bring to the table today is agreeing to disagree, how to disagree, the importance of disagreement, and how to disagree and still get along with the person that you're disagreeing with. And then also, finally, the importance of counseling when it comes to each individual and then each couple. So, to start off, a little bit of background, just an analysis of our current state in America and the world. It seems like people have this connotation when it comes to when they hear the word disagreement. Oh, debate. I don't want to argue. I don't want to have a conflict. Let's not disagree. Or this, which is, oh, they disagreed with me. They're just stupid. They're part of the other group. They're the part of the ignorant group. I don't need to talk with any of them. And I feel like social media and the mainstream media both do very, very good jobs of allowing people to write off the other opinions, never cover the other opinions' perspectives, and also categorize other people with different opinions in a box. It's like, oh, all people on the left are stupid. All people on the right are stupid politically or religiously. Oh, all Muslims are stupid. All Christians are dumb. All Jehovah's Witnesses are crazy. And that's a dangerous perspective to take, because let's do this experiment when you're sitting at home. Try to characterize yourself, put yourself in a box and describe yourself with like 1 or 2 or 3 words. Like, that's going to be really tough. You know yourself better than pretty much anyone else out there knows you. And if you can't even put yourself in a box, what makes you assume that you can put other people in a box? And you can't, because it's not possible. People are too complex. Every human is so complicated. So putting them in a box is a dangerous game, because you are now writing off most of what they think into 1 or 2 words or phrases. And in my opinion, that doesn't allow for you to learn from what they think. It makes it very easy for you to assume that they're dumb, stupid, blind, when really you're the most blind, stupid, and ignorant person you know. And so that's why I highlight so much the importance of assuming the person you're speaking to knows something that you don't, because it makes it seem so wrong to put someone in a box and characterize what they think in a few sentences. The smoothie making is in process. Okay, and it seems that people... Where was I going with all of this? It makes it very easy these days with social media to write off other people and what they think, and make it seem like other people's perspectives of the world are so simplistic and easily classified as wrong. When's the last time you actually sat down and talked with someone that you disagreed with on one of these topics? When's the last time that you've got into the nuances of each one of these subjects that you're talking about? It's like, I doubt you talked and sat down with someone who fundamentally disagrees with a lot of the things that you believe. And it's like, go sit down with them. You'd be very, very surprised to find out that 80% of the things that you're thinking that you're going to disagree on, you're going to have common ground, and you're going to be able to come together and say, wow, this person's pretty reasonable. We just disagree on a few of these burgeoning subjects at the very top of all this. It's like, be very careful before you just classify people into a certain group, because that's how you lose the ability to connect with people, and that's how you lose the ability to learn from what they think. And that's the beauty of disagreement. Some people have this connotation that disagreeing is such a negative thing, and oh, they disagreed with me, I don't want to talk to them. When really you should flip that on its head and say, wow, they actually disagreed with me. Man, that's conversation I actually could learn. The things I'm saying doesn't resonate with everyone. I might have been saying some things wrong. There's a few things I could update in my perception. He made me think of this. I never thought of that. That adds complexity to what I think. And it's like, disagreement is one of the most beautiful things out there, and that's exactly what the founding fathers were talking about when it came to what freedom of speech is. Freedom of speech is the continuous improvement and update of each person's mental map and perception. And in today's day and age, I don't see that many people getting together and having long-form debates about what they truly think and what the other person thinks, and strong-manning what the other person thinks, and then them strong-manning what you think, and coming together, figuring out what you agree on. It's like, how many of you know what strong-manning means? I'll do a quick analysis. So, there's two words that I'll explain. First is straw man. S-T-R-A-W. Straw. Geez, I can't even spell. But straw man. It sounds weird, but so let's say that you were sitting in a crowd and there was a person giving a talk, and the talk was probably 2 hours long, an hour and a half long, and a person asked what you thought of it or what was it about, and you're like, it wasn't the greatest talk. They talked about that, and it wasn't very good. They talked about religion, and it wasn't very good. And it's like, the person who you just spoke to is now going to be like, oh yeah, that doesn't sound very good. They didn't really talk about very much. When it's like, you just straw-manned them. They talked for a good hour and a half on all kinds of things. You probably didn't take down notes to explain exactly what he said to that person. So you just straw-manned what they said, and you did the disservice to all that work that person put in to trying to add complexity to this subject. Whereas, so like, or if you're in a debate with someone and one person's like, I believe that Trump is the best president because, and then they lay out an argument, and then the other person's like, you're just a Trumpian. And then it's like, well, you just strawmanned me. And so like, that's a straw man, but a strong man is where two people disagree, and then the one person is like, okay, can you tell me what you think I think? And then this other person's like, okay, I'm going to try my best to say what I think you think in his most reasonable and true way that I can without discrediting you, and while it's like, it's the whole giving the devil its due. And that's exactly what I'm trying to get to. I feel like everyone should be strong manning every other person that they run into that disagrees with them's perspective. Because if you just straw man people that you disagree with, you're going to have a very, very narrow view of reality. The instant you're going to hear someone that brings up a word that you disagree with, you're just going to write them off and be like, I don't associate with those people. They're all stupid. They're all dumb. It's like, you just straw-manned them. You probably couldn't even make a solid argument on what they think and why they think it and the pros and cons of thinking that way. And it's like, yeah. So you really don't know why you don't agree with them. You just don't agree with them, in quotes. And so that's what I'm trying to get to. And that's why I think social media is so dangerous, because a person might put a post up that says, I believe this, and it's like one sentence long, and then someone might be scrolling their phone and say, oh, this person thinks this. Oh, I don't need to associate with them. And it's like, yeah, neither of you, the person who might have put that quote out might have meant one thing, and then the person who's scrolling past might think another thing, and then it's so easy to put that person in a box. Oh, they're just an X. I don't associate with X's, so I'm just gonna move on and never talk to them. Or if I do talk to them, I know that they're stupid because they're an X, and that's the danger of social media, in my opinion. Because like, imagine you both walk into a room just coincidentally, and you're like, oh, how's it going? What's up? What you up to? And it's like, oh yeah, all kinds of common values. We're both working, we both go to school, we both have relationships, we both are trying to better ourselves, and then it's like, yeah, you're not, try to put them in a box now. Not very possible. They're super complex, and you could talk for hours and hours and hours and still never fully understand them and get to know them fully. And it's like, that's why I'm trying to highlight the importance of strong manning versus straw manning, because when you are able to make a solid case, solid, coherent, clear case for what a person that disagrees with you truly thinks and why they think it, you then are able to see the flaws in your perspective, because, wow, that point that they made is truly credible. That truly updates and criticizes the way I think, and now I have to truly update what I think. The next time I say something, I got to add that piece that they showed me. I got to add that into my argument to add complexity and show nuance. And because you were able to strongman them, and you were able to talk with them, because they're just another human being who had a different set of experiences and beliefs. They aren't some stupid X, Y, or Z, or whatever box you want to put them in. That's a dangerous perspective. Dangerous. And so, I guess I was looking up what is disagreement and how to disagree correctly and the wiseness of disagreeing, and I was just trying to write some thoughts down, and one thought that came to mind is, let's say you're having a discussion with someone, but then you say something, and then the other person comes up and says, I don't really think that's a very good idea. And a lot of people might hear that and say, they just personally attacked me. I don't like that. They just attacked me right there. And it's like, the first step in a disagreement is separating your identity from your ideas and your belief. Because then if someone comes in and criticizes what you're saying or thinking, you then can have the perspective of, oh, this person just wants to help update and improve my mental map and my perceptions. They aren't criticizing me. They're actually doing the opposite. They're trying to improve me and make sure that I am not led astray by something that's not true. And I don't think that many people have that kind of perspective, especially when someone disagrees with them. It takes a very, very mature person to realize, this person actually had the courage to tell me that they think I'm wrong. Props to them. I really respect that. I might very well be wrong, and they might actually have just helped me see that I am wrong. And without them, I'd still be that ignorant, stupid, and dumb person who is saying this thing that's not true. And so, that's the first rule, it seems like. Separate yourself from your ideas, because your ideas will change and grow and update and morph with time. But that doesn't mean that but that's an optimistic thing. And you will always be you, but your ideas will typically morph and improve, hopefully for the better. And, okay, so that's when you're being criticized or being disagreed with. This is the next part. When you're disagreeing with someone, state your intent. I typically do this kind of spiel, which is, well, all I know is that every single person is pretty ignorant, and us coming together to hash out what we disagree with is actually an incredibly optimistic thing, because you might know something that I don't, and I might know something that you don't, and if we actually listen to each other and strongman each other and think about each other's ideas, we are then able to update what we think and grow together as people and grow in connection with each other. Now there's a little bit of trust. We allowed vulnerability to become into the equation. It's like, I was vulnerable with you. I said what I think. It's a deep topic, and you said what you think, but we were able to come to a lot of common ground, hash out what we disagree with, and then come apart with realizing that life is super complex. We might have slightly different perspectives, but we can agree to disagree on those few weeds, but there's a huge cement block of common ground that we can stand upon and grow together with. And then we still have some other things to debate on. And so that's all just a beautiful thing. So then before I even criticize someone, typically I say, like, I do this because I want to help improve you, and I want you to help improve me, and I think disagreement is one of the best ways to do that. And so that's really important. And one other thing before you even like hammer a disagreement at someone is ask a few more questions. Listen a little bit longer. Ask them to reiterate what they meant. Maybe you misinterpreted what they meant. Maybe they aren't the best at articulating what they mean. So it's like, have them reiterate. Have them explain that again. Have them just clarify what they mean. And then if they just clarified it and you still disagree, then you can finally commit to a disagreement and say why you disagree, and you hope to grow from this disagreement. And I think all of those are super important when it comes to talking with people that you agree and disagree with, friends or people you don't know that well. And if you take that perspective of, I'm pretty ignorant, can you see any critiques in what I'm thinking? And then you start from that perspective, and then they come and like explain what they think could be improved, and then you're like, man, that's a great point. I'm going to add that to my inventory of thoughts, because wow, that's a great addition. And then they're not going to be on the defense anymore. They're going to be like, wow, this person's genuine. They were vulnerable. They allowed me to criticize them. And it's like, now they're probably going to be more open to you giving a little bit of critiques back. And that's the goal with all of this. Let's try to gain common ground with people and form connections, because when those connections are formed, that's when the true disagreements and debates can occur without people becoming enemies. And it's like, there's no need to become an enemy with someone. They just have a different perspective. Their parents might have told them this growing up. They might have saw this thing on YouTube a few years ago, and that's what they think. And it's like, before you just write them off, give it a minute. Listen to them. Try to clarify what you think and they think together. And I want to make people realize that disagreeing is honestly a very positive thing. And if we were all the same and agreed on everything, how interesting would life be? Not very interesting. Not interesting at all. Oh, what do you think, John? Exactly what you think, always. Whatever you say, I agree with. And it's like, that's just a dog right there. Do you want to talk with a dog? No. I want to talk with a human who has different experiences and interpretations of reality. And I want to learn from that other human. I don't want a yes man. I want someone who's going to say, Harley, that was a little bit stupid what you just said. Update that, please. And it's like, yeah, okay, thank you. Because I am. And that's the type of perspective I feel like if someone who says they're a Christian that's the perspective they should take. And same with pretty much anyone. They should take that perspective of, I'm ignorant, I'm going to learn from other people. The disagreements that we come across are optimistic things that help us grow together and learn from one another. All right. And I was explaining kind of how dangerous it can be to put people in groups, because try to put yourself in a group. And I talked about how I try to disagree with people and the things I look for in the situation. And I guess it gets a little bit more complex, because not always is it the wisest to like disagree with someone. Like, sometimes you have to read the room. Not every time is it going to be wise for you to try to have a heavy disagreement. It's like, sometimes these kind of discussions take a lot of time, and if you're realizing you only have like 2 or 3 minutes with this person, I don't think it's worth it. I think it's worth just keeping the air positive and just being grateful that you have someone to talk with for these 3 minutes. And also, if you don't know the person that well, you have to really be careful before you just start throwing disagreements, because like I was saying before, most people have this negative connotation with when some people disagree with them. And unless you have a good half an hour to explain the importance of disagreement and why you feel like disagreeing is such a positive and valuable and growth inducing type event to be taking place, I don't think it's the wisest thing to just disagree. So that's kind of a disclaimer. I'm not saying to go around hammering disagreements at people. I'm saying start opening up this discussion of the importance of disagreement and why. And then once you have that discussion on the importance of disagreement, you then can find a ton of common ground with the person and then finally disagree with the weeds. And because you'd be surprised on how much you could agree with someone. Okay, now I'm gonna tell a little bit of a story. So a few years ago, I started Western Michigan University, my journey there, and I lived in the dorms. And I came from a small Christian high school, and a lot of people in that Christian high school thought the similar thing. They said similar things. They believed similar things. There wasn't that much disagreement on aspects of how to view reality and the way religion works and all of that, because it was kind of assumed that everyone thought the similar thing and there wasn't really need to disagree. But then I get to Western and I see that, wow, not everyone thinks what I think, and not everyone has the same view of reality as me. And I was kind of intimidated because I was like, are all of these people dead wrong? Is the world stupid? Or am I ignorant? And do I have a lot to learn? And a little bit of both, but it seems like taking the second route was the wise route. Because it's like the two paths that I saw were the one path of, I already have the truth. I know exactly what's correct. My parents taught me the truth. My school taught me the truth. All these other people are stupid, and I'm not even going to associate with any of them or talk with any of them because they're part of that other box. They're part of either the secular box or the non-believer box, and it's like, guess how far that would have gotten me with forming connections with people and creating my net of people that I can come to. And it's like, do you think having that perspective would have allowed me to grow as a person, meet new connections, and then grow those connections grow in those connections? It's like, not really. Not many people like to be told that they're so stupid, and to hear someone say, "Oh, I know exactly how the world works, and I have the exact correct way of living," and it's like, people aren't a huge fan of those kind of people because those people are arrogant. They're assuming that they are fully correct and that they don't need to learn from anyone else. And those are honestly my least favorite kind of people. And that's why I chose Route 2, which is, I am ignorant. I have a ton to learn. I've only been alive on this complex earth for like 18 or 19 years. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to go out and talk to people in a genuine way, try to understand what they think, separate the wheat from the chaff on what they think, and update my perceptions based on what they say. Professors and students alike, any person I run into, coworkers, boss, anything. Learning from them is way more beneficial than thinking in your head, oh, they're all just ignorant, they're all not worth my time. And it's like, that's a dangerous perspective. And so I'm glad that I took path 2, because I'd be a completely different person if I took path 1 those few years ago. And let's see here. Okay, so now people have different personality types when it comes to disagreement. Not always is let's just back it up a little bit. There's a core personality trait called disagreeableness. And some people are on the spectrum are hyper disagreeable, and some people are hyper agreeable, and then there's a distribution curve, and most people are kind of in the average, and the amount of like the majority of people that are hyper disagreeable are men, and the majority of people that are hyper agreeable are women, and the men and women average are kind of in this center range, and most people are moderately disagreeable, and just moderately, and some people in there, but there's a spectrum and there's a normal distribution. But so that's something to realize. I recommend taking this course. I've explained it before, but it's called understandmyself.com, and it's created by 4 psychologists who have studied personality for a long time. One of them being Jordan Peterson. I don't know the other 3 names, but he's the one who brought it to my attention, and it made me, like, when I took the test, it said that I was just moderately agreeable or moderately disagreeable, like the 60th percentile of disagreeableness. So like out of a room of 100, 40 people would be more disagreeable than me. And that seems pretty true. I am pretty agreeable. If someone says something that I think is wrong, I'm going to sit back and listen for a minute, because I'd rather allow them to continue to explain their point more and add complexity to it before I just hammer a disagreement, because I feel like I do better when I'm able to agree with quite a lot of things they say, and then finally add a cherry on top with saying, but I think this is a little bit inaccurate with what you're saying. And that's how my personality type works. That's why I explain that whole process that I do, which is I can imagine that there's a huge amount of things that we agree upon, and I respect what you think a lot. So I'd like to understand what you think. Can you explain what you think again? And then I try to hash out that common agreement cement block that we can stand on. And then finally, those weeds that grow out of the cracks, we can kind of hash through and sort out. And that's why I'm different than some people I know. I know people that are pretty disagreeable and will disagree right away. And I've learned to live with those kind of people, because those kind of people will say what they think right away, and there's no hiding stuff under the rug. It's just blunt and truth. And I can be pretty blunt, but I'd rather get a feeling for what you think first and have some common agreements first. But I don't know. The point I'm trying to make out of all this is to say that things are complex, and every single time you're debating, disagreeing, I don't have the full answer to tell you, oh, you should disagree or not, because it's situation dependent, it's topic dependent, and it's person dependent. First off, like I was explaining before, how much time do you actually have before you guys have to part ways, before class starts, before you got to get back to work, etc.? Like, what kind of environment is it? Is it an environment where you're supposed to be professional and talk about just work, or are you in the backyard and you have tons of hours to hash something out? It's like, figure out your situation that you're in before you just start disagreeing with someone. Second, topic dependent. Let's say someone's talking about, oh, I spend so much time taking care of my cat, and oh, it's a pain, and oh, I don't have time these days because I just take care of my cat so much. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not worth disagreeing. That's not that important of a topic. Like, they're just complaining about their time in regards to their cat. I don't know the cat. It's not that important of an issue to me. I'm not going to learn that much in hashing this little weed out. It's like, no. But if someone says, I'm really struggling to find the value that I see in my life and other people's lives, and I'm seeing that life is just kind of meaningless, and it's like, that's a bit more of an important topic than, oh, my cat is bugging me. And so that's where I might actually disagree a little bit and say, hey, I think life has value. Well, it's hard to prove that, but it seems like it is not useful to assume that life has no value, because once you assume that, the path that that diagnosis takes you down is a terrible route. So I would much rather assume pragmatically that life has so much meaning and that every single action you take has huge consequences, because it does. And when you act in that way, you make the world a better place. And so that's where I'd have that kind of disagreement with someone. So it is topic dependent. Like, how important of a topic is it? Is it worth arguing about? If it's super, super deep and important, then yeah, it's probably worth hashing out and discussing. But if it's something minuscule and it's just, then it, in my opinion, I probably wouldn't disagree. Or I might just say, I might not say anything because I'm not interested in that kind of discussion. You know? Okay, thirdly, it is person dependent. Sometimes there's some kind of people who you can tell, you can banter with. You can joke around with. You can give them a little smack, and they're able to take it. And it's like the rough play that people do. It's like, and some people can really take that and dish it back, and it's all just out of humor, because life can be painful. And if you have that kind of humor that you're allowed, that you can take that kind of slight amount of just truth, doses of truth, and just someone makes fun of you a little bit, it's like, yeah, make fun of them back a little bit. Haha, it's funny. And you can kind of read that with some people. They're able to take that kind of, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. They can take that bit of play. But you can also read when someone, they obviously are not the kind of person who can take that kind of joke. And so it's like, they aren't someone who I'm going to call stupid right away. You know, like, if you know what I mean. I'm going to be a lot more reasonable and, what's the right word, open-minded and careful with what I say, because some people react differently. So, and also, how well do you know the person? Is this the person that you live with and you see all the time? Then yeah, it's worth disagreeing with, no matter the topic, no matter the issue, because you have to see them every day. And if you don't hash out what you guys are thinking, you might get resentful for a long, long time if you keep hearing them say what they say. And if you don't disagree with them, they might never know that you disagree. But like, let's say it's some stranger that you haven't met before and you probably won't see again. Is it really worth going into a deep debate on? In my opinion, no. And so that's where disagreement, like I was saying before, is incredibly useful in certain situations with people that you know that can handle it, and also with people that you want to see improve. And so yeah. Now I'm going to move on to this next topic, which is I disagree with my girlfriend a lot. We have a lot of debates all the time. And some people might hear that and say, the probability that they're going to continue for the long term is low, because it seems like they're fighting a lot and they disagree a lot and they argue a lot. And that just doesn't sound very good. That doesn't sound like a good relationship. And I used to think similar things, but my opinion has shifted fully, because it seems like if you're in a relationship with someone, a friendship or a relationship, and you aren't hashing out what you think together, chances are one person or both people are not fully saying what they think all the time. And if they aren't fully saying what they think all the time, there's a high probability that resentment is being built up in the back of their heads. I could think of all kinds of situations where it's maybe one-sided. The one person is a talker, talk, 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 and the other person is just a listener, taking it all in. And maybe this one person says something that this one person doesn't like. They say it, but then this person, A, maybe doesn't like conflict, B, is not a huge fan of disagreeing, or C, is just super, super agreeable. And this person might be saying things, and this person gets kind of annoyed that they say it, but they never open their mouth to say, hey, I think that's really not the smartest thing. This bugs me when you say this. I am not a huge fan of that. But if this person never says this person's just going to keep saying what they're saying because no one's saying, hey, be careful with what you're saying. And so that I can see that as a dangerous thing. And or if one person blabs for a bit and this person doesn't really disagree with what they say, and this person talks a little bit and they don't disagree, it's like both people are growing in resentment because they aren't able to disagree with the other person. Or they have this perception that, oh, if we get into an argument, that's bad news because couples aren't supposed to argue. And it's like, that's a dumb perspective, because you think of this. How many times do you argue with yourself on what the best move is? What should I do? This or this? I don't know. This is a pretty good move, but this is a better move. Or maybe I should do this or that. It's like, how often are you debating within your own head? Maybe this, maybe that. I don't know. That's kind of dumb. This is better. Maybe not. And it's like, yeah, you got to debate with yourself. So chances are you should be debating with your significant other and with your friend, especially if you have a close, deep friend. And it's like, because Rachel and I guess there's this one rule that comes to mind. I'll explain this first, which is, don't let unwanted things remain in the fog. Do not let them remain in the fog. Because let's say for example, I say something, Rachel over here is listening, and I say something that it really annoys her, and I just say it, and then I'm like, and then we move on with life, but then I look over at her, and she's just kind of upset and annoyed, and if I don't ask, what did you think of all that? Or if she doesn't say, I wasn't the hugest fan of some of that, then we would probably move forward with life. She's growing with resentment, and resentment can be like a combustive thing. It can grow and grow and grow, and then it just takes this tiny spark to light it off. And that's the danger of that rule, or of ignoring that rule, which is, do not leave unwanted things in the fog. And I take that to heart so often when it comes to the people that I'm super close with, that the instant they say something that I feel like is false, I'll jump right to, I wasn't the hugest fan of that because of that. Or I'll say, what did you mean again? Can you restate what you think? And then they say it again, and then I'll disagree. And I think that's super important, because I can think of all kinds of instances where something is said on one person's end, me or her, and if the other person wasn't able to say, I disagree, what do you mean? I think I don't agree with all that, I don't think this relationship would have lasted, because there would have been so much resentment built up on each side that, oh, they say all these dumb things, or oh, they don't ever listen to what I say, or it's like, that's why the instant that you get the feeling that, I don't really like what they said back there, say it right now. Because the thing is about these kinds of things is, if you don't say it now, that thing is going to grow. Your emotions about it are just going to get bigger. You're going to get more annoyed. It's going to feel like a way bigger issue. Oh, they say this, but when you keep that inside, and then you let time be a factor, resentment grows with time. And if you would have just sliced off, right, like a second or two after they said it, that ginormous monster that you're building of resentment in your head would have never been able to grow, because you could have just said, oh, I wasn't a huge fan of what you said there, and then they could have said, oh, well, I actually meant this, and oh, I'm sorry you interpreted it that way. Let me kind of re-explain, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I agree with that. And it's like, you just saved yourself, hypothetically, maybe a lifetime of a giant resentment monster growing. And that's why I take that rule. Do not let unwanted things hide in the fog. Bring them out into the light so that they can be looked at, analyzed, and criticized together. And if both of you can come together and analyze this monster in the light, then it's really not going to look that giant and scary. But if you keep it tucked back there in the back closet of your mind, it's going to look dark. It's shadowy back there. You can't always see that clearly. It's dark. But if you bring it out by saying it into the light, oh, it's just a little teddy bear, bro. It wasn't that scary. It's like nothing to be that scared of. And that's why I feel like some people have this perception, either from their parents or just from culture, that say, oh, my wife says this, but I'm not going to disagree because... And couples that disagree are not good couples. And I don't want to set that example for my kids, so I'm just going to keep it inside because I don't think disagreeing is worth it. And it's like, I would reread some things. I'd rethink what you're thinking for a minute there. It's just dangerous. I can see some marriages that I can think of right now where I look at them and I'm like, either one person is kind of in charge here and the other person's just the yes man, or both people aren't really on the same page about much, or they don't communicate much, and they don't come to each other to debate and discuss and negotiate. And it's like, yeah, it's probably because one person or two people or let one of those resentment monsters grow, and now it's incredibly scary to bring up that monster because in their mind, it is one of the scariest things. It's one of the things that's driving them down and making them unhappy and making them miserable. And that's why I say to people, who are in relationships, and I say to people who have close friends, tell them that you disagree with them, man. It's worth it. Like one thing that Peterson says, I read his 12 Rules for Life book, and I forget which rule it's in, but it might be just the tell the truth or at least don't lie rule, where it's like, okay, he brought the analogy of marriage, and he kind of compared marriage to a symbolic of two cats being chained together and thrown into a barrel to squabble and fight and debate and scratch and figure it out. Because that's kind of what marriage is. You've signed this contract, you've made this vow, it's a big covenant, and there shouldn't be much that should allow you to separate. You should be able to negotiate with this person. If this person is special and important enough in your life for you to sit down and say, I want this person to marry me, then that's equivalent to saying, this person is worth fighting about every single little thing about. Everything is worth fighting about with this person. I don't want to lose this person, so I'm going to fight with them on every front. The instant they say something that annoys me, I'm going to let them know right away so that a resentment monster doesn't grow and capture and eat us and ruin our relationship and ruin our kids' relationships. It's like, no, every little thing is worth fighting about. The way that he puts his shoes on in the middle of the floor. The way that she doesn't put her dishes in the dishwasher. The way that the towels are folded. The way that he gets greeted at the door. It's like, it's not about each one of those little things. It's about the ability to fight/negotiate about each one of those things. If you're able to say, hey honey, I have this thing. Maybe I'm just a little self-conscious or just, I just have this thing where if someone doesn't greet me when I come home, I just get resentful and I can't control it. It's been like this my whole life. My mom would always greet me when I'd come home, and that's what I request from you. Please, when I come home, can you come and give me a hug and a kiss, because I just need that. And if you're able to say that and be super vulnerable with this person that you're hypothetically married to or wanting to marry, then chances are they're going to negotiate. They're going to say, man, they might say, why is it important for me to greet them at the door? Well, it doesn't really matter why it's important. It's important to them. And if it's important to them, I'm going to sacrifice this little bit of time and I'm going to greet them at the door. And it's like, same goes for another thing where it's like, hey, this other perspective where it's like, hey, if I'm going to be making the meals the majority of the time, I have this thing where it's like, if I make a big meal, I do not feel like it is my responsibility to clean it up. And if whoever makes a meal in this house, they are not obligated to clean it up. But the person who just gets to eat the meal, it is their obligation to clean it up. And if you can have these kinds of discussions with the person and say, and by fight about it, I mean negotiate about it. But fight is just an easy word. It's like you might think one thing and the other, but the chances are you got a huge amount of common ground, that cement common ground block, and then you can stand upon that and then hash out the few weeds up top. And that's why I think that couples that debate and negotiate and argue and fight, but in a productive way, people who can fight, negotiate, and argue in a productive way, those are the couples that are going to last the longest, in my opinion. No matter how compatible they are personality-wise or how much common interest they have, the secret sauce to a relationship is, can you negotiate? Are you able to say no? And can you disagree with them productively? And that's honestly my goal when it comes to a relationship. I'm going to try to disagree out of love and respect for the other person and out of love and respect for myself. And that brings me to my final point, which is counseling. And so some of you guys might be saying like, but what if the two people the couple comes together on a consensus and they agree upon something that is fundamentally wrong? And now they're living in this feedback loop of echo chamber of, yes, I believe this thing, and oh, I certainly agree with it too, and it's so beautiful for them because they can just have this echo chamber. But then in reality, they both are being led astray together because they both believe something or act out something that isn't true fundamentally, but neither one of them realizes that they're wrong, and so they're not going to ever assume that they're wrong because the person they love the most agrees with them fully. So that's why I think counseling is incredibly important for that reason and a few other reasons. And so Rachel and I go to a counselor every week. We've been going only for like a month or two, 6 weeks, and it's been so very important because there might be something that we're annoyed about or arguing about or debating or just hard topics to talk about, and not always am I in the mood to hash this out or talk about it. I normally am, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood. But the thing about going to a weekly meeting where the counselor is going to be asking prying questions like, what's up? What are you guys talking about these days? It's like you're going to be forced to strongman the other person's perspective on this debate that you're having because they're sitting right there. You can't just, it's not like they're in another room and you can say, oh, they're being so unreasonable right now, and oh, I'm obviously correct here. And it's like, good luck straw manning them. They're sitting right there. It's like, what you have to do instead is, well, there's this thing that we're trying to figure out, and I think this thing, and she thinks this because of that, and we both agree on a lot of these things, but there's just a few things we can't fully figure out. Am I being unreasonable in saying that I think this? And then she'll say, am I being unreasonable in thinking this? And then we'll kind of hash it out as a group of three. He'll mainly ask questions like, what does that make you feel when he says that? What do you think of when she says that? Why is this making you emotional? What about this discussion is useful? And then might give some advice, but the most important thing about a counselor is that they aren't there to just give you all the answers. They're there to ask the questions so that you can start thinking of some of the answers and start thinking of a game plan to solve your problem. If they just came up and were like, oh, this is a clear-cut case, I know exactly the solution, you're going to do that and you're going to do that, it's like, that doesn't help, because then the couple isn't able to wrestle and try to figure out what's correct and negotiate together. And and obviously counselors aren't the bearer of all knowledge either. You got to take them with a grain of salt. And so the best counselors, in my opinion, are the ones who ask questions that make the couple think, and who truly challenge what they believe, and try to ask why a lot, instead of saying, oh, I know exactly how to solve this and here it is. It's like they might give in some of their own personal stories that kind of relate, and that can really help. But either way, this counseling session is useful for all couples, no matter how compatible they are, because you could find a couple that has so many common interests, that's compatible personality-wise, that have a ton of common goals, but who knows if they're going to last if they can't negotiate together and come to and find common ground within each other on important topics such as how are we going to discipline the kids, how many kids, when do you want kids, what school do you want to send the kids to, how involved do you want to be in their sports life, how involved do you want to be in their schooling, are you wanting to homeschool, or what kind of sports do you want them to do, like what kind of house do we want? Where do you want the X? Where do you want the bathroom to be? Like, there's 100 different things, 1,000 different things that you're going to need to negotiate on. And no matter how compatible you are, even you two negotiating together, no matter how solid and incredible you are at negotiating, you're never going to be perfect at it. And that's why those who have the humility to say, I could definitely use some help with this negotiation thing. We could definitely use a little bit of assistance here. We could use a third-party objective person who's able to listen in and give slight ideas and advice and ask questions. Those who have the humility to go into a counseling session and say, I really could use a little bit of help. Those are the couples, in my opinion, that are going to last. Those are the couples who have penciled out an hour of time a week to, I care a lot about this relationship, I want it to last for the long term, and I'm going to do anything it takes to make sure that this relationship continues. And the couples that go to counseling are the couples I respect the most, because chances are some of the problems that you're fighting about could be solved if you had a third person, objective person, just they're able to just witness you guys hash it out and say, I think you're being slightly unreasonable, but I also think you're being slightly unreasonable here. And I think, and that's my perspective on all this. I think no matter who you are, if you're an individual, let's bring it to an individual now. I've been talking about couples for a while, but let's say you're an individual. We all are. And, well, I'll just give my experience. I started going to counseling about 5 months ago, once a week, individually. And it's that whole idea that I was bringing up before. You debate in your head all the time. Oh, this is a better idea. Oh, this is better. Oh, that's worse. That's dumb. Oh, I don't know. And if you're able to have the humility to say, I can't figure all of this out on my own, I need a third person party to come in and just kind of tell me where I'm being stupid and tell me what I should be doing better. It's like, if you have that kind of humility, you're going to succeed in life. And I feel like counseling will force you to think about the things that you're doing wrong or the things that you're doing right and talk about them. Because a counselor, it's not your dad or mom. It's not going to be that uncomfortable telling them that you've failed here or failed there or watched porn here or had sex when you shouldn't have there. Or they're there to, the reason you're paying for them is so that you can tell them that and so that you can hash out these kinds of things. There's no need to tell, like, there aren't any repercussions to you telling them that. They are glad that you told them so that they can know you fully. And if they know you fully, then they can maybe give some slight advice. And that's why I recommend counseling for all people. And so I guess to sum up this whole thing, which is negotiation and disagreement is one of the hardest things in life. And if you're able to disagree respectfully and negotiate with the people that you love in your life and with people in general, you're going to make it far. You're going to be looked up to as a person. You're going to be looked at as a leader. You're going to be looked at as someone who is able to flush out complex ideas and come to a consensus and learn. And I also think that if you are able to have the humility to go to a counselor once a week or once every other week to talk about the troubles in your life, you're then going to have those troubles at the forefront, and you're going to want to solve them because you're going to want to explain to the counselor in the next session that, hey, I improved upon that problem, and it feels so good to improve upon it, and thank you so much for listening to my problem. And that's my whole encouragement to you all. First off, figure out how disagreeable you are. Second off, try to disagree in as respectful and as productive a way as possible. And C, negotiate with the people you love and with the people you run into in general. And D, go to a counselor if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or a wife, or go to a counselor if you're an individual and have problems. And guess what? Every single person listening to this podcast is one of those people. They are an individual with problems, and they might so happen to be with a significant other. And so that's my recommendation to you all. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you in the next one. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you so much for your time and energy that you used watching or listening to this. I really appreciate it. If you found this conversation meaningful, share it with your friends. Give me a like on YouTube. Subscribe. Follow me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give me a rating. I really appreciate it. Word of mouth is how I'm going to spread this. And if you found it useful, tell all your loved ones, because I bet they'll find it useful too. Thank you so much for your time, and you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.